This is Tankobon. This week we're going over Bug Ego, the newish manga by One and Kyoto Shitara. My name's Cole Greco, and joining me as usual is my co-host Jude Knoll. Jude, how's it going?
Pretty good. I've got 1 week left in my master's semester, so just finishing up some of my grad final projects,
Mm-hmm.
mostly just some creative writing stuff.
Nice.
I haven't really tried to write fiction in the past, but I had to turn in 2 short stories for the semester, so I've had some fun both trying it out and writing. I guess reading some stuff and figuring out what type of short fiction I like. Because I've liked novels a lot in the past, but I'd never really read a lot of short stuff. So it's been fun.
That's cool. Yeah, I have tried as just personal creative projects to write fiction, and I find that I have a lot of fun with it to a certain point, and then it's once I've got 25% of the way, I'm just I'm done with this. I just
Yeah, the
can't do
effort
it.
is crazy. Because I guess unlike making music or making, I mean, I haven't tried making a film, but I would assume it's a little different because when you're doing that, I feel like you have more you can it's easier to watch or listen back
Yeah.
to what you've actually made so far. It feels more tangible. Whereas when you're writing, you're just I really can't even tell if this is trash or not until I show somebody else.
Yeah.
And it's just words on a page.
And I don't know what your process is for it, but the way I've always sort of done it, and maybe this is the reason why I can't ever finish something, is that I'll have ideas, and so I'll put them down as just general notes, and so I'll just
Yeah.
sort of scrapbook my stuff together of okay, this is whatever the start, and this is gonna be 20% of the way through, and this will be how it ends, and I'll do all this stuff, and then it's I really don't want to piece all this together.
Now that's pretty similar to what I was doing.
Mhm.
I actually to get started. I used one of the charts that Araki put together in the making manga book to flesh out a character, which is funny because I was trying to write literary fiction that really has nothing to do with
Yeah.
shonen manga, but I was I'll try this. I have a book about making fiction, so maybe this will work for anything. And it kind of did help, honestly. I just left the special powers section blank.
Sure.
But he was pretty thorough creating the JoJo's cast, so it did really help.
That's pretty cool. I mean, at the very least, it's someone who has experience with very long form storytelling. So
Yeah. And he's
pretty good.
serious about art too, so he's no slouch.
True. Yeah. I mean, there's very clearly some literary influences on at least the early
Yeah.
JoJo parts and stuff. And in latter ones, the guy likes to he likes to write. So
Yeah. I think we need a Hunter x Hunter guide.
I was gonna say we need the Togashi version of that. It's
Yeah.
literally just how to write a light novel.
No, for real, that might actually be more helpful to me now.
All right. Well, we'll get into the episode here. This week we're gonna go over Bug Ego. It's I say newish. I thought this manga was a lot newer than than when I looked it up. It actually started in April of 2023, but the series Bug Ego by One from One Punch Man and Mob Psycho 100 fame, and art by Kyoto Shitara. I looked up their work. They didn't really have. I mean, they had some other series and one shots and stuff, but nothing that was recognizable.
Yeah. And I think this one is new to us.
Yes.
Because it just was translated and put out on Manga Plus and the Viz app recently.
Yeah, from what I could tell, it looks like maybe the first chapter started or came out in April 2023 in a magazine. I don't remember which one exactly, but it was part of this thing that the magazine does where they'll publish the first chapter or two of a bunch of series and let fans sort of vote on which ones continue. This one wasn't in that competition, but it ran alongside those as here's an early chapter. And then I think maybe the second chapter came out in that, and then it got moved to ultimate jump or something like that. Some, some one of the 10,000 jump offshoots. So it's part of that, and that's where it runs now monthly. And I think it got translated in English, like picked up by Viz in November.
Yeah, and I'm like a huge one apologist,
Mm-hmm.
and I tend to really like the stuff that he draws himself, like with the shitty like storyboard kind of like stickman art
Yeah.
style. I really liked the I thought the original One Punch Man was cool. Obviously, like the remake, very neat with like the extremely detailed art
Mm-hmm.
style. I think my favorite work of his is still Mob Psycho 100. In fact, that's on our Tankobon Essentials list. So I think this one was interesting because he's starting from scratch with a
Mm-hmm.
collaborator as an artist from the beginning. And to be honest, I think that was a good move. Like, just allowing him to solely cook on the story from the jump. Like, I think a lot of the things that make one's work so special just like immediately surface on this. Whereas in One Punch Man and Mob Psycho, it kind of takes a few chapters to like get in the rhythm and to establish the world.
Yeah, you know, I think that like the stuff he draws himself is like neat as a novelty, but then I
Yeah,
very
yeah.
quickly am sort of like, man, I really don't want to deal with this anymore. So I do like the Murata version of One Punch Man, or just this
Mm.
having good art. It's a little bit, I'll sort of like spoil my manga recommendation, but I've been reading Yu Yu Hakusho, and just like seeing Togashi do like real art, it's like, oh my gosh, I
Yeah.
forgot that this guy can actually draw, and it makes like going back and like looking at latter Hunter x Hunter stuff just like it's pretty tough. Um, and so I feel that way a little bit about one. So I do like that he has an actual artist working with him this time. And the
Mm-hmm.
the first thing that like I noticed or like kind of picked up on Bug Ego is that I feel like tonally and just like as a concept, it's very different than both One Punch Man and Mob Psycho
Yeah.
100. It is not like both of those series are. I've not read Mob Psycho, so I might be wrong, but both series are like kind of parodies of like common like manga genres and like trappings and stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that. And Bug Ego, I think, is like not that at all.
Yeah, I will say I think like on a macro level it's really different, but like on a micro level you can see a lot of like really small but like important emotional cues that crop up in this one and his previous work.
Mm-hmm.
So like I definitely think this one it's still like pretty goofy. It's less of like a explicit parody or like
Yeah.
it's less of just like a meta postmodern work.
Mm-hmm.
But I think some of the really important things do surface here. Like I think in all of the one stories, there's like this very naive character that's getting used by people that are smarter and more like not smarter, but like more streetwise
Yeah.
and more like
The
savvy than
Genos
him.
character is or Genos, the whatever cyborg guy that's like Saitama's sidekick, like that character.
Yeah, and like in one or in Mob Psycho 100, like Mob is extremely talented, but he's constantly just getting like used and manipulated by people that are like lazy
Mm-hmm.
and really like cunning. And I think that's kind of the case here. Like the main character Takahiro Kokudo in Bug Ego is very much a mob type character. He has like a goofy bowl cut type hairstyle. He has a taller kind of like father figure character who doesn't have his best interests in mind, and the main character is like suspicious of his motivations but is so lonely and desperate for companionship that he's willing to go along with it.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of how things work in both Mob Psycho and Bug Ego. So I think like although this one does feel more like its own thing, I think it's taking a lot of those themes that he explored in his like more explicitly goofy works and he's making them even more sincere. Because I think what made Mob Psycho really good for me was that it had this like really distinct emotional core where like it really made you feel things
Mm-hmm.
which you wouldn't expect. And this one does that from the jump.
Yeah, there's like chapter whatever 2 or 3. It's whenever he sort of confronts Makoto Hitsujaya with like this sort of, you're not really friends with me. You just want to like get closer to the hacks or whatever.
Yeah.
Like that moment, you're sort of like, oh man, like, I didn't think, like, he's right.
And I guess to like introduce the series a
Hmm.
bit, like this, unlike Mob Psycho or One Punch Man, where it's about like explicitly like a superhero character who is indestructible, this one is more just like about a concept,
Yeah.
and that concept is that there are these things called hacks in the world, where like if you do something really specific, like put a certain amount of coins in a vending machine, like a bird will shit underneath a telephone pole, or like, if you drop a coin somewhere, your soul could be transferred into this wooden statue.
Yeah.
A lot of it is like useless and stupid
Hmm.
stuff.
Yeah, they all start off like very mundane, and then obviously there's like 8 chapters out. As it
Yeah.
grows, there's now like, if you whatever do these 3 steps and hold like a bunch of batteries in your hand, you can like generate electric powers and stuff. Like it's gotten to the point now where we're at, kind of Togashi Hunter x Hunter, or JoJo's Bizarre Adventure style, like, you know explanations for some of these things. But I'll say too, it's a series that, like, the first like chapter I wasn't like super super sold on. Like, I thought it was kind of
Mm.
interesting, but it's like a lot of explanation. Um,
Yeah.
and the series continues to be that way a little bit, where it's like you do this and then this and this and this and this, but it never feels the way that like Ladder Hunter x Hunter or Jujutsu Kaisen or things like that do. I think because all of the like steps and all these explanations are so just like, it doesn't really matter that much. Um,
Yeah.
you know, I think it's more, he describes them because I think, like, for the purpose of being like, look at all of these stupid things you have to do this, that you can almost
Yeah,
just
it's
like,
funny.
yeah, you can almost just like ignore it, or just like, oh yeah, I get it. Like, there's 6 steps to this. Let's just like see the end result. I don't feel like I have to read 8 paragraphs about like, this prince that we haven't met yet, and like all of the people vying for his
Yeah.
spot.
Because like when I first started reading the story, I hated the I guess not even powers, but like these events were called hacks, because I'm
Hmm.
like, oh, that sounds so stupid. I felt like they should be more like called glitches or something. But
Hmm.
as it's gone on, I actually really do like that, because I and this is just pure conjecture here. I imagine that one was like scrolling through TikTok and he's seeing those like dumb videos where it's like awesome food hack, and
Yes.
it's like some extremely like roundabout way of making a mid food item that doesn't make any sense whatsoever, or
Yep.
just like one of those like craft videos that make zero sense.
Hmm.
I felt like that was the inspiration for this. And I also feel like it's like a combination between that and like, I forget what they're called, but they're like those creepy pasta esque stories that you'll hear on Reddit, like a glitch in the Matrix story,
Oh.
where it's like,
Hmm.
oh, I walked into a like CVS late at night and nobody was talking and everyone was standing still like a mannequin. Like, it's a combination of like internet urban legends and like really dumb YouTube reels
Hmm.
or YouTube shorts videos.
Yeah. Yeah, like those Reddit horror stories, subs, and things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, uh, the thing I like about this manga is it feels like, at its core, much more sincere than at least like One Punch Man does. I like One Punch Man, but there
Yeah,
does
no, same.
become a point where, like, I haven't finished One Punch Man, because at a certain point you're sort of like, all right, like, are we just going to keep doing this thing for whatever 200 chapters? And this one, at the very least, initially, like, it feels like there's a story, or like there's a real goal to this,
Yeah.
whereas One Punch Man just felt kind of infinite. And maybe it's changed now in latter chapters, and there is like,
It has
yeah, I
not.
was gonna say maybe there's like a quest we're going on, but I suspect that's not the case.
Yeah. And I think here, like, as a fan of the One Punch Man, like, remake, I think Murata's art in that is really good and, like, deservedly considered some of the best manga art ever.
Hmm.
I think I prefer the Bug Ego art. They're similar because they're both, like, hyper
Hmm.
realistic, ultra detailed, and lavish. But I think this one has like a sense of humor to it
Yes.
that really surpasses what Murata was doing, which is already like GOAT level.
Yeah, this one's much more varied as well. He does this thing a lot, especially with like the friend character, where things will happen, and it's in this like typical kind of manga style, or like there might be kind of like chibi reaction panels and like cartoony moments, and then there'll just be like two panels on the next page of the friend like in this super detailed, almost Junji Ito kind of style. It
Yeah.
honestly, the thing it reminds me of the most is like me and Roboco, how me and Roboco kind of like flashes between all these different styles and stuff, which that is obviously like pure parody. But
Yeah.
I like the stylistic choice of that here, because it does. There are parts of this manga, like I was reading the most recent couple chapters last night, and there's parts where it's like borderline. I don't want to say like horror, but like
Yeah.
thriller in the way that like Seven is, or something like that, where it's like
Yeah.
I'm a little freaked out by like what we're unearthing now.
And I like to comment on the like hyper realistic paneling too. I think for me, what it reminded me the most of were those, I guess not chapters in Hunter x Hunter, but like color
Hmm.
illustrations or cover
Yeah.
pages where Togashi was drawing something in like an almost hyper realistic like portrait style.
Hmm.
But here it's kind of played off as like a joke or like a horror flash, but it works too. Or it's like that meme where it's like old SpongeBob episodes would always have a frame like
Hmm.
this.
It now that we've kind of like circled the Hunter x Hunter Togashi thing, well, I
Yeah.
wonder how much of it's obviously not like a parody of that, but I wonder how much of it is one sort of being like, what if I did my version of that? Because there really are a lot of similarities. Like even these kind of hacks and all these rules and things they come up with is kind of reminiscent of like the Greed Island arc in Hunter x Hunter,
Oh
or even
yeah.
like when they go to fight that tower, there's like all these rules and stuff they have to follow for like whatever, you have to beat these people and then go to this floor and that kind of thing. So I wonder, I don't know, obviously like making rules for your fantasy story isn't like a Togashi specific thing, but
Yeah.
they do feel pretty similar in that way. And like you said, there are some of the, like the stylings and the art that feel pretty similar to like uh yeah, the volume covers, or there'll be like random moments like Hisoka is drawn in this like a
Yeah.
similar style to some of the Bug Ego characters. So I wonder if there is a little bit of that going on in this manga.
Definitely. At times, it almost has like this collage like feel where even things like in the background or like an item will have this photorealistic
Hmm.
style and then be in front of a background that feels more explicitly like comic.
Yeah. Hmm. Yeah. The honestly, like reading it, I halfway expected the artist to have like a bunch of big series or something like that. That I was expecting to like go through their stuff and be like, oh, they're the
Yeah.
artist who did this, but I was surprised to find out that that's not the case. They just have made some stuff, but it doesn't look like anything like super relevant.
And like even with Murata in One Punch Man, like I went back and read
Eye Shield.
Eye Shield 21,
Hmm.
and Eye Shield 21's art is not hyper realistic
Hmm.
or even that good in my opinion. So I feel like somehow one is bringing out like this insane level of latent talent in people that had produced like pretty good stuff in the past.
Hmm.
And maybe it's just like the fact that they're on such a schedule that allows them to like work over a really
That's what I
long
was gonna
period of
say. I wonder if
time.
it's just because
Yeah.
this series is monthly and One Punch Man is like, does it even have a schedule? Let's just see
Whenever.
how when
Yeah.
Murata feels like drawing.
Because I did the same where I like went on manga decks and looked up some of their like weekly stuff, and it looks just like a decent Shonen Jump series.
Yeah.
Whereas then you look at this and you're like, this is like some of the best
Hmm.
like comic book art I've ever seen.
Yeah. The other thing that really impressed me about this manga is, I think you and I have talked a lot about how like, kind of like monthly series can sometimes be pretty tough to read,
Oh yeah,
because the chapters are long and stuff like that. And once you've got caught up to, like, if you're reading them in real time, it'd be pretty brutal to be like, oh, there's a new chapter of this. Let me like try to like rack my brain for what happened last time, get back
yeah,
into it. It'd be hard to do. This series, I never really got that. It's actually, for all of the explaining and all the rules and all this stuff, it's very like breezy and easy to read. I don't know. It's shocking how like digestible and legible it is.
Yeah, and I think that's just like one's writing
Mm-hmm.
has always been so good because I feel that way about all of his series. And I think it's like what it comes down to is like whenever things are very complicated or like over the top, it's very explicitly played off as a joke.
Yeah.
And like at the core, it's all just about like this series is explicitly just about like friendship or
Mm-hmm.
like coming of age. And it's the same with Mob Psycho too, where it's like all of this is just kind of like all of the powers and the action is kind of extraneous. And at the end of the day, it's just about like in that series, it's about like learning whether or not you can trust adults and like this idea of like being a trusting kid and like losing your innocence. In this case, this is more explicitly about like teenagers and their relationships with each other,
Mm-hmm.
but very similar setup.
Yeah, there is like very early on all of this stuff about like, you know, is this person really my friend? You know, how much
Yeah.
do they like enjoy hanging out with me versus like are they attracted to like this other, this
Yeah.
whatever, it'd be like wealth or yeah, the hacks that I can do, that kind of thing, which I think is like it's interesting. Is the thing that you don't really see like develop or explored a lot just like in most media. I feel like that's something you
Yeah.
don't see a whole lot, but I think that like anyone who has been 15 years old has kind of like had this
Yeah.
stuff of like, yeah, I hang out with all these people but I have no friends kind of thing. And that's how
Yes.
this feels too, right? Like these two hang out together, do all these hacks together, and then at the end of the day they're both sort of like, yeah, but like you don't actually, we are not really friends.
Yeah. And I feel like, too, because this is something we'll talk about in the future, but even reading Tech on Concrete,
Hmm.
I feel like some of the themes here, although it's about like two different stages in life, I think there's a lot of similarity
Yeah.
because it's like this really codependent relationship between two boys.
Hmm. Yeah, and Tech on Concrete obviously has like whatever, like the kind of the street smart kid, and then like just the really naive
Yeah.
dumb one. And this has that also, but I feel like the roles they have them sort of merged, where like the main character is obviously like very smart about like all these hacks and like understands the systems behind
Yeah.
that a little bit, but like as a just like a kid in high school is has like no experience with like interacting with people. Isn't it like the first chapter or two he's like really struggling because he has to go to the bathroom all the time or something
Yeah.
like that.
Which like I kind of related to that.
And then the friend is like much more like a much more normal human, but really struggles with like grasping these hacks, and like he's like addicted to the hack almost.
Yeah, well they even like because they keep talking about it later. He's like, they say he's drawn to or the
Yeah.
hacks are drawn to him.
Hmm.
Like there's some sort of like
It's
weird force that's
inescapable.
like making him doing them.
Yeah.
But like, I do think it's kind of him experimenting with the inverse of Mob Psycho because in Mob Psycho, Mob is like this. He's like this extremely talented and like serious kid who has he's like really naive and easily manipulated. And then there's a guy that's like kind of stupid and goofy, but he's also extremely competent and like good at communicating with
Hmm.
people, and he can manipulate Mob into doing whatever he wants.
Yeah, I feel like I need to check out Mob Psycho now.
No, it's really
I've been trying
good. I
to
love
I've
it.
been trying to like not do this actually, where 'cause I think I've said before that I have this thing where I'm like, Rumiko Takahashi, right? Like I want to read Inuyasha, but
Yeah.
I'm like, well, if I'm gonna read Inuyasha, I should probably read all the other stuff first in order, which means I'm just
Yeah.
never going to read Inuyasha. So I'm trying to break out of that, but now I'm like, I'm seeing the reason I do that, where it's like to understand Bug Ego, I need to have read Mob Psycho also.
No, I think it's like super like you definitely don't have to have read One Punch Man. I
Yeah.
kind of feel like that's really its own thing, but to me, I feel like this is him being like Mob Psycho was like really incredible, but it also kind of like took me a second to figure out what I wanted to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like gonna commission an artist to just like take over all the character designs, and I'm gonna like write
Mm-hmm.
Mob Psycho in its perfect form.
I wonder. reading this, like I'm trying to think of where I think Bug Ego goes, and I do wonder because it pretty quickly has already ramped up to like getting like
Yeah.
crazy supernatural stuff. So I wonder how into the sort of One Punch Man lane it starts going with some of that stuff.
Yeah, and I think what he was able to do with Mob Psycho too, because that one ramps up pretty quickly
Mm-hmm.
as well, is that he kind of gets to this point where he's like, okay, like we have these like world shattering powers, and people have like reached this kind of like indestructible level, and now we're gonna kind of like still explore that, but put that in the background and make it more just about like Mob is trying to join a club at school,
Yeah.
or he's trying to like get a girlfriend,
Mm-hmm.
or he's trying to like be accepted by other people. And like sometimes stuff will come in and like attack him, but it's more just about his daily life. And I'm hoping that becomes the case here, where they like find, maybe they'll uncover some like huge conspiracy, or like there will be a cataclysmic event, and then things will kind of just return
Mm-hmm.
to normal as if nothing ever happened.
That's sort of what I'm expecting because I think we've already had that kind of cycle a little bit in this, where like something happens, he gets like trapped in a wooden doll or something like that, and then they free him and it's like kind of chill for a second, and then like another thing happens and they free him and it's kind of cool for a second.
Yeah.
And I think we're on that already. I do like the introduction of this new character too. I can't remember her
Yeah.
name, but I like the dynamic that she brings, like this very like serious and like kind of calculated approach to these hacks, where like beforehand they've been sort of just like kind of figuring it out, and she's like really kind of
Yeah.
investigating it's very fun.
This really, like, I was kind of thinking it before, and now when I'm thinking about the trio, I'm like, this really reminds me of Dan to Dan, because
Yes.
that one's about urban legends.
Mm-hmm.
There's kind of like, in Dan to Dan, there's a trio with like a nerdy, like, shy guy.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's the like guy who's like super goofy and naive.
And like the
And
loudmouth kind of mean girl.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I do think this time, like, the girl is a bit different. But,
Mm-hmm.
like, I think this is all, like, it's all close enough where I'm like, this is probably inspired, at least in part, by Dan to Dan.
Definitely, that was something I was thinking too while reading this. Is in some ways it does feel like one kind of taking on the like the Fujimoto style of manga, where like I don't want to say this is like Chainsaw Man, but I feel like it's in that same umbrella of like the Chainsaw Man, Dan to Dan, Jigo Karaku, those type of things too.
Yeah, and I guess in, like, the shonen world, too, like, One Punch Man is definitely a pretty good parody of, like, Big Three
Mm-hmm.
era shonen. But we've kind of moved past that now.
Yeah.
I feel like this is, if anything, it's kind of about the death of postmodernism, because, like, One Punch Man is just like peak, like, this is postmodernism. Like, it's just meta narratives,
Mm-hmm.
it's absurdism. And then Mob Psycho is like, okay, we have to find the like humanity behind postmodernism, because in the end of the day, One Punch Man is just kind of this empty shell.
Mm-hmm.
And now I feel like this is like meta modernism, where it's like, okay, it's absurd, it's kind of meta, but at the end of the day, this is still like a pretty human story. This is more traditional storytelling. It's really like one's career arc and David Foster Wallace's career arc are one and the same. Like, not even joking. Like One Punch Man is his like infinite jest, and then this is his The
I
Pale
was gonna say
King.
this is Pale King. Yeah.
Yeah.
I need one's brief interviews with hideous men.
No, see, he could do something like that.
Be pretty good. Yeah. Need the one. This is water speech.
That would go crazy.
It reminds us off topic. There was like, I don't know if you've ever seen it. There was like an old man. I don't want to say TikTok because it definitely was before that, but it might have been like a Vine.
Yeah.
It was like the Monday Night Football thing, but it was like they were
Yeah.
like parodying David Foster Wallace and stuff, and one dude like stands up with a bandana on. And I have to find it. Man, it's so good.
I've always felt like Infinite Jest would make a really good anime or manga adaptation, though.
Mhm.
I mean, you've got like
That is a
in
Togashi. That's a
some,
Togashi novel, is what that is.
yes, it's like it's a tennis, like a boys tennis school,
Mm-hmm.
but then there's all of these like crazy asides and like lore for each character.
Yep.
Like it's very manga
Mm-hmm.
coded.
Yeah, without a doubt. I need manga footnotes. You have, you have to go to like the back of the book, and the end notes are also in like manga styling too.
Yeah, somebody needs to do this. Like I yeah, Togashi is like basically the closest thing we've got.
Yeah.
Like Togashi and one need to link up, and then we've got like the infinite jest of manga.
There we go. Talk about a manga that would never be finished.
Yeah, yeah, for real.
Yeah, this I was really you told me to check out this series like, I don't know, a while back. And
Yeah,
I expected it to just be like, I don't know, like fine, right? Like cuz I feel like a
yeah,
lot of these series when I don't know, we've seen it countless times where like the Naruto guy comes back and his series kind of stinks, or the Food Wars people come
yeah.
back and it's like, all right,
Oh god, that
whatever.
one's
The
terrible.
Toriko guy comes back and it's like, yeah, this is fine, sure, right? Like these people all come back and you're like, ah, like it's so rare to get like a Shinohara, a Yabuki, a
Mm,
Matsui, where like these people can just like keep churning out like great series after
yeah,
great series after great series. And I don't know, I mean, one did it again.
yeah. I'm like
His hit
every
rate
time
is
it gets
up there.
better.
Yeah, his hit
Yeah,
rate's up there with Shinohara and Matsui and Yabuki.
yeah, and I think this time too, just like starting off with a new artist or like a
Hmm.
collaborator really helped because like from the jump, this is maybe chapter one isn't like incredible, but I felt like by the end of chapter two, I'm like, this is like GOAT level
Yeah.
manga. And usually it takes me, I don't warm up to things very quickly.
Hmm.
A lot of times I'll watch a TV show that I end up loving, and I get to the end of episode one and be like, this is kind of
Yep.
trash. I'm just going to stick with it. This is like one of the few times where I start a new series in like any medium, and like off the rip, I'm like, this is so good.
Hmm.
Like, I'm already obsessed with it.
The other thing it reminded me of was Cypher Academy a little bit.
Yeah, I feel
I feel like it
that.
has a similar dynamic between like artist and writer as well. And
Yeah.
I mean, Cypher Academy obviously like it got to the point where we were sort of like, all right, ready for this series to end. But I feel like that was more because it's just like a tough series as like an English only speaking
Yeah.
person to like digest. I feel like it was like less of the fault of what's it, Nisio and
Yeah.
the artist. And yeah, this I don't know. I think like tonally it's pretty similar too, where like
Hmm.
it's kind of serious. It's like really like the kind of like the logic of the world is really thought out, but also like it's silly. The logic of the world doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So from that aspect of it, I'm like excited about it too to see like if this can kind of actually realize the promise of a Cipher Academy.
For sure. And I do think that like I can't remember if it was the most recent or second most recent chapter where they like describe like chaining the hacks to create attacks.
Yes.
Like I was like this usually I would hate this type of thing, but I'm like, this is such a cool concept
Hmm.
because like it kind of reminds me of Undead Unluck
Yeah.
too, where Undead Unluck has like these powers that would like normally be kind of stupid or useless, but
Hmm.
people like figured out a way to make them cool. But I think Undead Unluck really kind of fails at making that concept interesting. This takes that concept where it's like, oh, these like stupid, useless powers, but like repurposed in a new way,
Hmm.
and it does it in a way that's like actually cool and
Well, I think
interesting.
it's a thing that obviously manga fans love and rave about are like these, whatever the power systems and things like that. And
Yeah,
it's things that I think are like really interesting. Like, I mean, the Jujutsu Kaisen powers and stuff are really cool until they become not. And same for Hunter x Hunter. Like
yeah,
the Hunter x Hunter Nin system is incredible until like you have to spend multiple chapters explaining someone's power.
right.
And I feel like this is the same way. And obviously, like it would be very easy for one to fall into the same like giant trap hole that all these other people have. And we're going to be chapter 45 and it's like, oh my gosh, he's spent 6 chapters explaining this one hack. And that could happen, and like history has told us that
Yeah.
will probably happen, but there's a chance it doesn't, and maybe it'll stay really like, I don't want to say grounded. The series is not grounded at all, but like it'll stay digestible where those series don't. Like I think Jujutsu Kaisen ran into the thing where like it keep having to like grow and grow and grow, and having to like come up with all these cursed objects and cursed powers and whatever, and domain expansions and stuff. And so I don't know. I hope that one is able to keep it like interesting in that kind of like JoJo's stand battles way,
Hmm.
without getting JoJo's stand battles.
Yeah. For sure.
But I think that kind of does it for my notes on the series. Jude, do you have anything else to sort of add about Bug Ego?
Um, I guess for me, like, I think the Junji Ito-esque scares
Mm-hmm.
are one of the strongest aspects of it.
Yes.
Like, there's that scene where they're in the dream, and like, usually like jump scares are so hard to do in
Mm-hmm.
manga, especially if you're not like doing super detailed art. But I feel like one of the most effective ones in this series was when you see the guy who's like standing off in the
Yeah.
field and he's like really far away, and then it's like slowly zooming in, and there's just like this hyper realistic guy with his mouth open super
Mm-hmm.
wide. Stuff like that is really cool, and I think this does a good job of creating horror
Yeah.
in a series that actually feels scary, which is very hard to do in manga.
It does a good job of this thing that I've been kind of thinking about. I've started like checking out some like visual novels and stuff. I'm not
Yeah.
like really locked in to any of them, but the thing that I like about that medium, and that I would like to see more manga do, and I think this manga does really well, is that like, with books you can't really like control the pace at which people like see stuff or like read or figure out
Yeah.
information, but manga you can, right? Like if it's not on the page, you can't right, like you can't get to it. You
Yeah.
There is still like some amount of delay in the information that you're going to see, and I think this does it very well with these like page turn moments of like, you might be able to predict or know what's going to happen, but like it's not there until it is. And I
Yeah.
think this does that very well. It does it, I think, in the most recent chapter. It might be like the last couple of pages of the most recent chapter, where they've got this like clay doll thing that they're like trying to get
Yeah, it
information
is.
out of, and then like the page turns and it's like, oh, like shit hit the fan, and it's like, you know like you said, these like jump scare moments, or it just like creates this intensity that I think like a lot of manga lacks.
Definitely, definitely.
So yeah, I'm excited for more of this series. It is like a blessing and a shame that it's monthly, because now I think I
Yeah,
saw,
I need more of it for
yeah, I saw
real.
next chapter in 22 days. It's like, oh, all right. But yeah, I'm excited about it, looking forward to it, and yeah, it made me really want to check out. Honestly, it made me want to like keep going through One Punch Man and also check out Mob Psycho.
Yeah, I mean, both are very worth it, even though I would say Mob Psycho is probably more worth checking out
Yeah.
just because of the time that goes into reading it.
Yeah, the One Punch Man. Once I got to like 100-page One Punch Man chapters, it's like, I'm
Yeah, it's
really gonna do
insane.
this. All right, so yeah, that does it for the Bug Ego discussion. I'll go ahead and, I guess, so next episode we're gonna be talking about the manga Tekkon Kincrete by Taiyo Matsumoto, and I think we're both planning on checking out the movie as well. I know you were talking about it
Yeah.
yesterday. So if anyone wants to kind of follow along, you've got a couple weeks to read that. It's real short. I think it's like 31, 32 chapters. Pretty
I
easy
read it
easy
in
read.
one day.
Yeah,
Like,
it's
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 good.
super easy to read, and I read it maybe a couple of years ago, but it was in like the left to right orientation,
Oh,
and
damn.
now on the
Yeah,
Viz app they like reissued it and they updated it, so it is in the correct like right to left now,
good.
which is really cool. Um, so yeah, excited to like check that out again. I've read like the first couple, like reread the first couple chapters, and then the episode following that, I'll go ahead and reveal as well, since it's a little bit longer series. If anyone wants to follow along, we're going to go over Kare Kano, His and Her Circumstances by Masami Suda. This is the series that you've kind of talked about the anime a little bit. It was a Gainax anime, and it's like a shojo series. So get like a little bit out of our normal like shonen seinen wheelhouse.
Yeah.
All right, Jude. Before we head out, what other kind of like manga and anime have you been checking out lately?
Well, speaking of Gynax, I was on the Canopy app the other day, which is the library's streaming
Hmm.
service, and they have a lot of like heat on there. A lot of Criterion movies and just like random like things you'd never even heard
Yeah.
of before. But they have Gynax's OVA titled Otaku no Video, which came out in 1991. And it's something I'd heard about, but I'd never like seen on streaming anywhere, so I'd never really just like thought to check it
Hmm.
out. Um, but it's a very weird like straight to video thing that came out that was basically just like it almost feels like a skate video, like something for just like for the fans. It's like just an hour and a half of like straight fan service, like in the not in the like ecky sense, but like in the just like this is some shit fans want to see way.
Hmm.
So basically, like half of it is this anime about a college tennis player who ends up ruining his life by joining an anime club and then like becoming he's trying to become the Ota king and like the king of otaku, and in doing so he ends up like founding Gynax and destroying the world. So it's like this sort of like semi-autobiographical surrealist story about Hideaki Anno's
Hmm.
life, and like it's set sort of in the real world too. Like a lot of it takes place during the early 80s, so you'll see like this main character going to see Nausicaa in the theaters,
Oh, interesting.
or he'll be talking about like we'll be talking about like Macross and shit like
Hmm.
that. But there's also like a live action segment, and this is what reminds me of like skate videos where they'll do like quote unquote interviews with otaku who are actually just like Gynax employees pretending to be office workers and stuff. And so it'll be like you'll see some guy playing like a visual novel and being like, "Oh, I'm so obsessed with this girl." Or they interview like a white guy who lives in Japan who's like, "My only regret in life is that I could not have been born here." And the people they interview get progressively like
Hmm.
crazier. And then at the end, it just shows like some of the demo reels that Gynax made in the early 80s. Like there's that one that I feel like everybody's seen where there's the girl in the bunny suit that's like riding on a atomic bomb,
Hmm.
like stuff like that.
That's cool. Yeah, I've checked like a lot of the Hideaki Anno stuff out pretty recently, and
Yeah.
I think it's when I first like watched Evangelion and stuff, I was like pretty annoyed. But I think like as I've like read more interviews and like articles and stuff about him, I think people like kind of forget that like he truly is just like the king of otaku. Like he's
Yeah.
like he made Evangelion like yeah to kind of subvert the genre, but also because he like loved giant mech anime and stuff. Like that's
Yeah.
this guy's whole wheelhouse.
To me, I feel like this is something that people who like only like Evangelion need to watch,
Hmm.
because I feel like there's this annoying sense where people are like, "Oh, Evangelion is like Evangelion and Cowboy Bebop are the only anime I like because they're like serious and subversive and
Yes.
artsy." And I'm like, Otaku no Video just shows that like, nah, this guy is like probably everything you hate about anime fans to a whole other level. And I think
Exactly.
it's like really funny that like he is so close to
Hmm.
Miyazaki, because I feel like they kind of like represent these like two opposing forces
Yes.
in the anime world, where like Miyazaki is like he's the serious one and he's like, I hate like fandom, I hate popular
Yep.
culture, I hate consumerism. And if you watch this, and like obviously it's like a parody, so it's not like 100% serious, but in this case Anno is kind of like, yeah, I kind of am obsessed with pop culture, consumerism. I'm kind of a degenerate.
Hmm.
Like, no, it's really awesome. I
Well,
love
and
it.
even if you just like think about like what happened with their works, the Studio Ghibli has obviously become like a lot more commercialized over the past whatever like 20-25 years than it was initially, right? Like there's
Yeah.
Totoro plushies in Barnes and Noble and stuff like that. But like Evangelion there were like rhythm games and dating sims and stuff made of that.
Yeah.
And like how much of that is under Anno's, can he even say no to that? Like I don't know the like licensing stuff behind that. So right. So maybe he's like, no, this is horrible and like bastardizes my work. But I suspect not, right? I think he's the kind of guy that,
Yeah.
like, if he'd grown up watching Evangelion, would be like, I would love to be able to virtually date one of the Evangelion girls. you know?
I mean, they talk about it. Like, I was looking into it more after watching this, but like before Gainax really had like hits, they were producing like bootleg, like model kits of Gundam
There we
character,
go.
like mecha characters. They were they were making like porn games that ended up getting
hmm
banned, but that like helped fund some of their early works. So they were like not above anything
Well, I
really.
mean, you can see that kind of stuff even in Evangelion, where like the show has this really like I think they don't even understand what they're trying to do with like sexualizing the characters, right? Like they
Yeah,
sort of try to make you like feel bad because you're like, well, look at these girls in these skin tight suits and stuff. And there's a little bit
yeah,
like you put the girls in the skin tight suits, and also like every theme in this is this weird like Freudian,
yeah.
psychosexual thing.
Yeah, like it's I think people I definitely think Evangelion is like postmodern and
hmm
self-aware, but I think it's actually more postmodern than people give it credit for
Yes.
because to me I think it's more just like people think like, "Oh, he's like critiquing all of this anime stuff." But it's like, no, he's critiquing
Yes.
himself like as the anime creator. Like and even at the end of Otaku no Video, like he kind of becomes this Gendo Ikari type character where he destroys the world and everything is floating in like the orange primordial
Mm-hmm.
soup. Like this was like kind of the blueprint for Evangelion. There's scenes that are like directly referenced later on in Evangelion.
Interesting. Yeah, I need to check this out. I wonder if it's on my library's Canopy. If not, I'm sure it's
It
out there
probably
somewhere.
is, yeah.
But yeah, that's cool. I need to peep that. I guess continuing on with like old, manga anime stuff. I've been checking out Yu Yu Hakusho lately. It's
Hell yeah.
I think I read like the scans of it back like I don't know, a couple years ago. I read like the first 25, 30 chapters and
Mm.
then just kind of put it down. And I've obviously watched the anime. I watched the anime growing up and I watched it all the way through I think a couple years ago also. Or honestly, actually it was like back during COVID maybe. Um but so I recently just kind of picked it up on the side, just kind of chipping away at it. And man, it is like I said earlier, it's really cool to see Togashi just like be able to draw a full manga. Like the
Yeah.
backgrounds are there, like you can tell that it's like this was his job and he was like doing all this and stuff. And I do appreciate what we get from Togashi now, even if I don't like current Hunter x Hunter. Like I can appreciate the fact that a
Right.
guy who like his back is terrible and is sick or whatever is like still putting out work. But I don't know, it's
Mhm.
cool to see like Togashi in his prime putting out fully formed manga. And also like the first, I think I'm on like chapter 6 or 7 right now, but like the first handful of chapters, it's so episodic, it's just ridiculous. But even then, there's a chapter I just like recently read where like there's like this old man and like he's dying and this Tanuki like transforms himself into like his grandson, but the guy knew it was the
Yeah.
Tanuki and stuff. And it's like this stuff you're like, man, this actually like is kind of emotional.
Yeah, I love because I've only seen like half of Yu Yu Hakusho,
hmm
but I love the Spirit Detective
It's
arc.
so
I know
good.
it's kind of hated, but like I kind of wish that was
Mhm.
Yu Yu Hakusho. Like they continued with
Yeah,
that.
and the manga is like very silly. There's like a ton of the like, goofy reaction panels. I mean, there's a ton of stuff in here that is like very clearly like Doctor Slump and Dragon Ball
Yeah,
inspired. Um, but so and honestly too, I'm like kind of excited to see it evolve into the like Dragon Ball Z portion of Yu Yu Hakusho,
yeah,
just because it is so kind of different that yeah, I don't know if you haven't read Yu Yu Hakusho, I definitely recommend checking it out. It's just like really cool
yeah.
to see, and it did sort of like remind me because I get like very cynical about Togashi because the way people talk about Hunter x Hunter, it's like
Fair, yeah.
I kind of forget how much I loved reading Hunter x Hunter because of the current stuff.
Oh yeah, yeah,
And
it's
it's similar
great.
to like Evangelion stuff. Like the way people talk about it is very annoying.
Hmm.
But I feel like Yu Yu Hakusho kind of like separated itself away from that, and I don't know why because it's really great too.
Yeah, no, I recommend the anime as
Hmm.
well. Like one of the best opening songs
Oh,
ever.
phenomenal! Yeah, constantly stuck in my head, and also the dub is very
Hmm.
very good. Um, uh, I like the dub a lot, and I'm actually hoping I've never watched the sub of Yu Yu Hakusho, so my
Yeah,
plan
yeah,
is after reading the manga to go back and watch it subbed this time,
hell
get the
yeah.
full Yu Yu Hakusho experience. All right, Jude, what's your kind of bonus last minute recommendation for us?
Yeah, so I mentioned reading some short fiction, and I checked out The Angel Esmeralda, which was a recent, like, retrospective collection of, like, most of Don DeLillo's short
Mm-hmm.
stories. I'd read White Noise before and really liked that. Loved the White Noise movie. Um, Read a couple of his other novels, but I hadn't checked out any of the short stories, and I thought they were all pretty good. Like speaking of 80s postmodern fiction about the end of the world and like consumer culture, there's a lot in here that ends up getting reused later in White
Mm.
Noise. And just some like really cool concepts in general. Like the title story is about a dead girl's face who like appears on a billboard for an orange juice advertisement when a train is like going past and like putting its headlights on the billboard at night. That kind of felt very Evangelion
Yes,
in a way.
that's cool. Yeah, I'll take a look at that because DeLillo is one of these people that I've like tried to get into.
Yeah.
In some parts of like I've not succeeded due to myself and also external factors. I bought Underworld when I was in like high school. I remember I took
Oh,
it.
that one's long as hell.
It is.
Yeah.
I took it on a trip to like the beach, or we were maybe just going to see my grandpa. And my grandpa is like a huge, huge reader.
Yeah.
And I had it with me. I hadn't started it yet, and he was like, "Well, can I like start reading it? Because like I'll probably finish it in like 2 days." And I was like, "Yeah, sure." And he just like stole it, and I don't know where it is. Right, like my grandfather passed away like I don't know 10 years ago or something. I don't have the book;
Yeah.
it's gone. So I've never read Underworld. He stole my book. Because I remember like I went to visit him I don't know, a few years after that, and I was like, "Do you still have my Underworld copy?" He was like, "No, this is mine." I was like, "It's not." I was like, "It is mine. This is my book." I paid $30
That's
for it.
hilarious.
So still haven't read that, and I listened to like maybe half the audiobook of White Noise, but the guy reading it was just so bad that I was like, I can't do this.
Yeah,
So
audiobooks are tough for me.
yeah, I want to actually read that, and I really want to read Libra as well, but you know, I just haven't got around to it.
Yeah. I mean, in some ways, he's very much the Hideaki Anno of American fiction.
Yes.
Because I'm also listening to the audiobook of one of his newer books called Zero K, which is about this like Gendo Ikari esque billionaire who invites his estranged son to come live on this like apocalyptic compound with him. I'm like,
To
damn,
pilot a giant mech suit.
yeah, basically, and like his mother is dying, and he has this like really like Freudian relationship with his mom. Like, I'm like, damn, there's like so many parallels here,
Hmm.
and maybe it's just because I'm like thinking about Hideaki Anno right now, and the wires getting crossed. But I'm like, there's a lot of similarity here.
Well, I mean, it's something I've been like thinking about a lot because I think I've said before that like I have like this running kind of like movie diary that I keep that I like.
Yeah.
I'll watch a movie and I'll write like if not like a little review, it'll be just like whatever I feel like writing about it. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and one of the things that I've been like thinking about is just like how do people know what this movie's trying to say or what they mean? And like I'll read all these reviews and stuff, and I'm like, oh, people just like say stuff. Like
Yeah. Oh, one hundred
these things
percent.
don't
Yeah.
these things aren't connected, but like if you just say it and you're like so I don't know. There's like an essay there that you could write that is like the connection between DeLillo and Hideaki Anno, and it's like this is complete bullshit. But also, if you just say it, it's now like it now
Exactly.
exists and is
Yeah.
true. So
Yeah, that's basically how academic scholarship works.
Yeah.
It's just like I just said something with enough
Yep,
confidence.
exactly. Yeah. I was just like, I thought about these two things because I read them or watched them back to back, and so now they are linked because I have linked them.
Yes, it's awesome.
My recommendation this week is going to be the movie Yi Yi by Edward Yang. I recommended Ed Yang movie in the past, A Brighter Summer Day. This one still like a tough sell, 3 hour Taiwanese, like, kind of slow drama, but really, really good. I've been reading some stuff about like Ed Yang. I like that Criterion. If you go to their website, they have like the Criterion essays on all the movies, just like available there. So like, there's a
Yeah.
few on this, and a lot of them like make the point about how like a lot of these Taiwanese like new wave artists um, are like very good about like making movies about like cities and stuff like that. And this one definitely
Mm.
has that, where like, it's just like there's so many like shots of people that you're not seeing them, you're just like seeing them reflected in the glass of an office building or something. That's really
Yeah.
cool. But yeah, this movie is really great. It's, you know Yang has this ability to like, I feel like, capture every sort of emotion or feeling you've ever had in one movie. You're like, oh yeah, got it. Like, this situation hasn't like 100% applied to me, but it's like, I get it. I have been there, and I don't know if I've ever seen like a filmmaker able to like elicit that as much as Yang was able to. So yeah, definitely recommend checking out Yi Yi. Also, one of the best like posters ever, just like the back of a kid's head. It's awesome, really good.
Yeah. Looking at these screenshots from the movie and like, wow, there are some insane images.
Yeah, it's
Very
yeah, it's
cool.
really good. It's definitely, like, came out in 2000. It has that like late 90s, early 2000s like kind of like grain and like kind of crust to it, in a similar way that like Evangelion
Yeah.
does, right? Of like, it just like it's of its era. But yeah,
For
uh,
sure.
really good stuff. Definitely recommend checking it out. It's on Criterion Channel. It honestly might be on Canopy. I don't know. Who knows? Um,
It probably is based on like they have a lot of like Asian
yeah.
cinema
If
stuff.
not, it's definitely something that like a university library has, or like a big city library has.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely recommend checking that out. And um, kind of in tandem with that, I recommend like, uh, or I talked about reading those Criterion essays. I also recommend the website Bright Wall Dark Room. It's a film website, kind of online magazine almost. Um,
Mm-hmm.
you can read, I think it's like 5 articles a month, but the subscription, I got it for like $10 for a year. They put it on sale, and if you don't get it on sale, it's like $25 for a year. But it's pretty cool. Every month they kind of like put out these essays about like some sort of theme. So I think like the most recent one is like clothes in movies, and so
Yeah.
they'll pick out like whatever, these 8 essays where each person's talking about a movie and like the whatever the fashion in the movie or something like that.
Yeah.
But it's cool stuff, and it's just, as someone who is like forever on this quest to be on social media less, it's been really
Yeah.
nice because I can just open it up and I'm like, all right, I'm going to read something about whatever Beau Travail, and I open it up and I'm like, cool, they've got 3 essays. I can like scroll through these instead of like flipping through Instagram. So
Same.
yeah.
Last week I deleted the Twitter and Instagram apps off my phone, and that's why I've been reading. I've been like, I should read a
it's
book
the
and not scroll.
it's the way to go. I've been doing bad about it
Yeah.
because I've gotten more into fighting games, and so like I'll like to
Yeah,
like
yeah.
look up stuff about like, what do you do against Blanca Ball. Is very easy to just go on Reddit,
Mm.
but it also means that I end up just like getting in the rabbit hole, like scrolling and stuff. So I need to, uh,
Yeah.
I put like
It,
the time limits on my phone, but I know the password
that
to
does
it, so
not
I just
work. Yeah.
bash in the password. I'm like, this is so stupid. Like now it's like I have to enter a password to access these apps. It's so dumb.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I need to get back on the horse, get better about it. But yeah, so that's my recommendations this week. Um, yeah. So next week or next episode, we'll have Tech on Concrete. In the following episode, we'll do Karikano, His and Her Circumstances. So as usual, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Rate, review, like, subscribe.